Greetings. This is Escape from Trucking. And as you know, Donald Trump just got elected president a few days ago. He was made president elect. And there is a little more optimism in the trucking industry. If you don't know, the trucking industry's been in one of the worst trucking recession of my career, and the worst trucking recession in anyone I talk to's recent memory. Um, and we can talk about why that is, but in this video, I wanted to talk about whether Donald Trump being elected is going to finally turn the trucking industry around, finally turn the trucking industry back to growth, finally turn the trucking industry back into what it was before that trucking recession that started in like 2022. There's a lot of optimism. For one, I am optimistic that it will actually, because I do remember what happened to the trucking industry when Trump got elected in 2017 and was able to enact a lot of things that really helped blue collar trucking from like the blue collar trucker perspective, helped the industry for the better. And so I'd like to talk about a few of those things and some ways which I think some of Donald Trump's stuff is actually going to help trucking and could finally pull us out of this 2+ years long trucking recession. And if you're not familiar with the trucking industry, it's a highly cyclical industry, and the recessions in the trucking industry tend to have been very narrow in time. You know, typically they don't last more than 12 months. So this particular trucking recession, which has lasted now for over 2 years, is quite remarkable. And I'm going to talk about how I think some of Trump's policies might finally put us at that trough, put us at that inflection point, and how things might get better. The first is a concern a lot of people showed. A lot of people are concerned about the tariffs, and that the tariffs might make the trucking downturn even worse. And it does make sense, and it certainly could. Economics is an imprecise science, so there's anyone who's saying, oh, this will do this and that, and this will precisely result in this and that is lying to you. But it does. I can understand why someone would be concerned that a tariff would hurt the trucking industry and could hurt the trucking industry, and it might. Some things that I just want to convey to you, though. The last time Donald Trump came in office and tried enacting tariffs, it was really just used as a negotiation tool with other trade blocs and other trade partners, such as Mexico and China and Europe. And I know some of the tariffs to China were implemented, but for the most part, the threat of these tariffs resulted in a renegotiation of trade agreements that ended up being more favorable to the United States. And I personally am in the camp that that is probably the most likely outcome this time around as well. And so the negative effect on our industry, if that's the case, the negative effect on our industry will be very much dampened. If anything, it might even be positive. Another thing that the tariff bears are overlooking, in my opinion, is that yes, a tax on imports probably would result in a rise in prices over the short term, which then would lead to less consumption of goods, which would lead to less trucking activity. That does make sense. I think what they're overlooking is that in the medium term and in the long term, what these tariffs will most likely do is result in a reshoring of production and manufacturing, which will structurally change the trucking industry, um, in a lot of cases for the better. So even if the tariffs do go through, I believe a lot of the pain there will be short term. So let's turn to some of the positives. I live in Texas, so I see this all the time. The oil boom, an increase in energy, drilling, oil and gas activity tends to pull a lot of truckers into the oil field. It's like a giant vacuum. It very quickly and suddenly sucks CDL holders to places like the Permian, to places like the Bakken, places like northeast Colorado, or the Eagleford in South Texas, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. And that, of course, causes a lot of vacancies everywhere else. And I think that's going to happen. I do. I do think that there will be Trump's drill baby drill policies, which will mean more. I'm not sure if you know this, but since Biden got in office, I don't believe there have been any. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe there have been any permits to drill or explore on federal land, and that greatly it doesn't impact Texas so much, but it absolutely does impact places like North Dakota and Colorado. Uh, and not only that, it's not just drilling and exploration permits, but it's also pipelines too. When pipelines don't get built, um, the oil producers cannot efficiently get their product to the market where demand is the highest, and so their realized prices go down per barrel or per 1,000 cubic foot, and the result of that is they drill less because they make less money. So there's less energy activity. So Trump will be more friendly towards pipeline construction. We know that. Trump will be more friendly towards drilling and exploration permits in these oil provinces. We know that. And if history is any guide, that is going to pull a whole bunch of truckers off of what they're doing and into the oil patch, which will result, of course, in more vacancies everywhere else. Just an anecdote, I live in Texas. I used to be a fuel hauler a couple of years ago, and our fuel hauling office would lose people to the Permian Basin, which is West Texas. They'd lose people to West Texas all the time, and it would be a big bone of contention with the terminal managers there. We keep losing people to West Texas, which of course pays so much better than anything local here in East Texas. Also, recently I went to a job interview for a garbage waste management company, and I didn't get that job, unfortunately. But one of the gripes, I was talking to the hiring manager, trying to get insights from the hiring manager there, and one of the big gripes he had was whenever the oil field picks up, guys that are hauling trash, they pick right up and go to the Permian Basin. So I keep saying Permian Basin. I should just say West Texas. That is going to lead to a lot more vacancies in trucking, one way or the other, and I think that's going to be good for anyone who is a CDL holder, anyone who is a W-2 CDL holder. All right. I'll move on to the third, and that, I guess this one's a little more controversial. Hopefully YouTube doesn't ban me. And that is a deportation of illegal immigrants. Now, the number of illegal immigrant truckers, I really haven't seen too many of them, if any. I don't really think there are any illegal aliens who have CDLs. I might be wrong. I might be a little naive. However, you might be therefore tempted to say, well, it's not going to impact us in trucking. I invite you to take a step back and think about this. Most of these illegal immigrants, they get into blue collar work. They tend to get into a lot of the construction industry. They tend to get into maintenance, HVAC, and things like that. A lot of working with their hands, basically. If we're going to start deporting a lot of people, and I think we're more likely to do these mass deportations, or at the very least, we're going to have a much tighter immigration regime like we did in 2017. If that is going to happen, I think it's more. This is more likely to happen than these big tariffs. If that does happen, there's going to be a lot of vacancies in those aforementioned industries. And if you've been in trucking long enough, you know that trucking is filled with guys who are here because they have to be. They don't really want to. And as soon as something that is more home daily or something else does come available, they will leave the trucking industry. And I really believe that these blue collar vacancies that will be left by deportations, these vacancies, they will fill these vacancies by pulling people. One of the sources of filling these vacancies is going to be the trucking industry. A lot of these guys are in trucking and don't even really want to be there because there isn't any other option. And I really do think that a lot of guys will come out of trucking and into these other blue collar construction, HVAC, maintenance, stuff like that. I really think that they will get a lot of those vacancies from the trucking industry. And that is going to reduce the labor pool available for carriers. And there's going to be more vacancies in trucking. There's just no other way to slice it. Now, if you've noticed, I've certainly noticed over the last 12 to 18 months, have you noticed that a lot of employers have gotten a lot more picky with who they hire? I mean, I'm old enough and experienced enough to remember when trucking companies would hire anybody with a pulse. Man, I went into that garbage hauling job a couple weeks ago, and they told me, I was shocked, because my experience with trucking interviews is, hi, do you want the job? When can you start? And the first question these people asked me was, what makes you think you can do this job? And upon digging a little further, the hiring manager told me that this was one position open and 15 people. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? Well, I'm sure if you're a trucker, you've noticed that these companies are getting more picky. They're scrutinizing your resume more. I've never once had my resume scrutinized by a hiring manager until I went into that trash hauler. I think there's going to be a lot less of that. I think once the oil and gas activity picks up, and once the deportations start happening, or at the very least we get a tighter immigration policy like we did in 2017, I think these employers will stop being so picky. I think they'll stop. I think they'll stop being picky. I think they'll stop going over all these resumes with a fine-tooth comb, and things might go back to how they used to be. I predict that there will be a return of the sign-on bonus. You guys remember from I started trucking in 2018. Yeah, 2018. But 2016, 2017, there were all these sign-on bonuses, and of course after COVID, there were just sign-on bonuses everywhere for experienced truckers. I think the supply of experienced truckers is going to very quickly implode with Trump as president. And I really do think that there will be a scramble for experienced drivers again. I'd say give it about 12 months, and you will start seeing cents per mile tick up. But I think what you'll really start seeing is the return of that sign-on bonus. But anyway, if you disagree with me or you have anything else to add, please do leave a comment for me. I'll get to it, and we can talk about it. Thanks again.